There's a classic story that exists out there that I'm not going to share with you. Instead, I want to share with you my own twist on that story. There's a man, he's sitting in the bottom floor of his house when suddenly the heavens open up and there's this tremendous rainstorm and the rain starts pouring down and suddenly the streets start flooding. So the man, to escape the flood, goes to the top level of his house, but the water keeps rising higher and higher. Eventually he goes to his roof and the water is rising and it goes to his feet and his knees and his stomach and his neck, and the man is about to drown and he calls out to Hashem and says, Hashem, please save me, I'm going to drown in this flood. And then suddenly out of nowhere appears a helicopter, and the helicopter drops a ladder, and the man climbs up on the ladder, gets into the helicopter, says, thank you, Hashem, so much for sending me this helicopter, and he falls asleep in the helicopter. And while he's sleeping in the helicopter, the man has a dream, and in the dream, Hashem appears to him. And the man turns to Hashem and says, Hashem, thank you so much. There was this horrible storm. The horrible storm was going to kill me, and Hashem, you sent the helicopter to save me. And Hashem says to the man in response, but who do you think was the one who sent the storm in the first place? I want you to put that story to the side for a second so we could jump to this week's Parsha. But I don't want to focus on the big event of Parsha Beshalach, the event of the splitting of the sea. Instead, I want to focus on what comes directly before and directly after the splitting of the sea. Because directly before the splitting of the sea, before the Jews know that the sea is going to split, imagine the scene. Bnei Israel had just escaped from Egypt. And they thought they were free, but now they have this Yam Suf in front of them, this seemingly uncrossable body of water, and then they turn behind them to start turning back, but they see the Egyptians are chasing them with the chariots and the spears, and the Jews are scared, and they have two reactions. Reaction number one is Vayitzaku b'nei Yisrael el Hashem, that they cry out to Hashem. And if you look at Rashi on the pasuk, Rashi makes the point that what are the people doing over here? They're not complaining to Hashem, but rather tafsu manut avotayim bi'adayim, that they are taking on the attributes of their forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, who all daven to Hashem. Vayitzaku b'nei Yisrael el Hashem is not the people complaining to Hashem, but it's them praying to Hashem, asking Hashem for help. It's this positive relationship with Hashem. That was reaction number one that the Jews had before the splitting of the sea. But reaction number two was they turned to Moshe. And they said, Moshe, they said to Moshe, are there not enough graves in Egypt that instead of you letting us die in Egypt, you have to take us into the desert for us to die? And as opposed to their relationship with Hashem, which was positive, they davened to Hashem, their relationship with Moshe, the interaction with Moshe was one of complaint. They were complaining to Moshe. Those are the two reactions the Jews had before the splitting of the sea. Then the whole splitting of the sea happens. Yes, it's a great miracle. And right after, what does the pasuk describe? Vayaminu b'Hashem u'v'Moshe avdo. That the Jewish people believed not only in Hashem, but also in Moshe. Right? The shift wasn't from not belief in Hashem to yes belief in Hashem. It's not that before the splitting of the sea, the Jewish people did not believe in God, and now they suddenly did believe in God. Their belief in God remained constant the entire time. What shifted was their belief in Moshe. Before the splitting of the sea, the Jews did not believe in Moshe, and then after the splitting of the sea, the Jews suddenly did believe in Moshe. What changed? Well, we have to understand. Before the splitting of the sea, the Jews were in a bad position. And after the splitting of the sea, the Jews were in a good position. And the Jews' faith, maybe based on the 10 plagues, maybe based on all the miracles that had been happening over the past couple of months, was strong enough in Hashem that they weren't going to stop believing in Hashem the moment something bad happened. But what the Jews did was this phenomenon that a lot of us tend to do, which is that when things are good, we attribute it to Hashem. But when things are bad, we attribute it to an external source, a source that's not Hashem. We tend to shoot the messenger being the storm sent to drown us, or the messenger being Moshe. It's something that, unfortunately, I've noticed a lot in the conversations about the war going on in Eretz Yisrael. That when we speak about all the miracles that are happening, all the incredible things that Hashem is doing to save us, we attribute it to Hashem. When we speak about the horrible things that are happening, the tragedies, we don't mention the fact that it was caused or decided that it should happen by Hashem. We leave Hashem out of the picture. And it's comforting for us to do this, to attribute the good to Hashem, but instead, but attribute the bad to some external source, attribute the bad to the messenger. But it's inauthentic because it's limiting the power of Hashem, and it's slightly heretical. The Mishnah in the end of Masechet Brachot teaches us that Chayav Adam Levarech al Atov Kshem Shu Mevarech al Ra, that a person has to bless Hashem and recognize Hashem's involvement in the good, just like he recognizes God's involvement in the bad. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is involved in both the good and the bad in the world. And yes, we understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu does good way more than we understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu does bad. But just because we don't understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu does bad doesn't mean we can't accept the fact that he does bad. Just because we don't understand something doesn't mean we're not able to accept it, and doesn't mean we shouldn't accept it. And it's something we have to work on. That even the bad, even though we can't accept by HaKadosh Baruch Hu does it, we have to recognize that it's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Going back to our story at the beginning, the man's problem was that he only thought that the good, the salvation, was from Hashem, but he didn't recognize that the bad, the storm, was also from Hashem. And only recognizing part of God's capacity without recognizing the entirety of God's capacity is slightly heretical. And I know this is supposed to be inspiring and this is supposed to be comforting, but the reality is that we don't understand the world, and we can't always be inspired by the world because sometimes things don't make sense. But we still have to make sure that even when things don't make sense, we continue our faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have to recognize that it is heretical for us to accept that Hashem sent the helicopter without recognizing that Hashem sent the storm. Something to think about over Shabbos. Sorry if that was a little deep or a little dense, but have a great Shabbos. Bye-bye.